Hello and welcome to another episode of Venture Talks podcast. Today we have with us Radu Georgescu, one of the actual OGs of the local Romanian and not just Romania entrepreneurship ecosystem. Radu, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I actually wanted to talk to you for quite some time now because I think that you have some of the most interesting views and accredited views of the ecosystem as a whole. For those that don't know, Radu had some of the most significant exits of the local ecosystem. You've built payment processors, antivirus systems. We sort of share a little bit, just a little bit of that track record, but it's a breath of fresh air to have somebody like you on this podcast.
No, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Right. So getting into the swing of things, what I'm curious about is, so you're sort of walking the line between founder still, an actual investor, and you're slowly moving into the fund of funds view. I'm not saying that you're planning of creating a fund of funds, but if there's anybody who has an appreciation of the venture capital ecosystem, private equity, and funding startups from scratch, that's you, and that's something that's
and we're only speaking about technology startups,
of course,
which is very niche thing. So yeah, it's absolutely exciting. So being somebody that I've funded myself as a founder, 37 companies all in my life. So that's quite a lot of startups to start, and there's a lot of experiences, failures, you call it
sure,
as you want, and there are so many lessons and so much enthusiasm and energy to create new startups and to change new things in the world. It's absolutely amazing, and all this experience, if you are able to put some money behind it and invest then in not only in my own dreams but invest in other people's dreams, it's so exciting and so much it creates such a great ability to expand and to grow and to scale.
Change at some point, because it's not just about your dreams and your own motivations, but if those don't translate into value for a large number of people, then a business can't possibly take off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there is something interesting here when it comes to mindset. What I mean by this is, a lot of people believe that you just start a company, you raise some capital, and that's it, your dream is over. But as somebody who's
not even the start.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We'll get into that a bit later, but as somebody who has a track record of 37 companies, you were met with both success and failure.
Yep.
But the most important thing was that you kept going and you kept iterating, right? So what are your views on quote unquote failure?
Look, I love failures, and I think that failures are great training experiences, learning experience. Failures give you views, give you alternatives, give you understanding, give you maturity. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm a firm believer that failures help entrepreneurs, and failed entrepreneurs are actually more investable, if you allow me to say kind of this funny word. So failed entrepreneurs are more investable than entrepreneurs that have been only successful. So entrepreneurs that have seen how not to do things,
right,
are so more powerful than the ones that haven't.
I agree. There's something to carrying failure as a badge of honor, or having scratches and scars on you from past experiences.
It's like scars. I mean, look, you have scars. It's experience.
Life is rough.
Life is tough.
You need that in life, and there's a point to be made here in the sense that. It's one thing to read about failure or to read about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur and trying and failing until you can actually succeed, and it's another thing to live it, right? So in your own experience, how much did your own failure help, and how much did reading about others people's failure helped you? Because I'm assuming both helped in some regard, but
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there are like, obviously there are the three levels of education. Is the formal education, school books, and then there's the mentorship education, and it's your own experience education. And each of them is very important. The more formal education, the more broad is and
Yeah.
less depth, but a lot of breadth. And the more your own experience, it's very focused and very deep in your
Right.
very small sector of expertise. Same with your failures. So your own failures gives you so much of understanding on a very small vertical that
Right.
you failed, and not much of anything else. So reading about failures, it's a bit romanced. It has, it's good because you can read a lot, and basically you can cover a lot of failures.
Right.
But your own failure, it's so important on one very small vertical. So I think that's the difference. I think both helps. I learn more from failures of people that I know and I'm speaking with
Right,
than
right.
from books. But I think all three are actually very
So you
important.
learn most from your own failures, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the way you
I have the
structured,
benefit that I failed a lot. So
there's something interesting here because you seem to have an appreciation for quote unquote experts, right? Because even as you were describing education, you said education could be broad, but then your own experience should be narrow and focused, and you should become an expert in your field. I take it, do you prefer to surround yourself with experts or generalists when it comes to founders, as founder traits?
oh, I mean, to start with, there are different roles in a company for different types of people. There are roles for generalists and there are roles for specialists. In general, I'd like to be surrounded by smart people. I love being, the dumbest person in the room, and it's amazing. I mean, speaking with smart people, it's absolutely amazing. And smart people are smart, or just smart. That they know enough of general stuff and so much about a specific domain, and they know, and that's one of the important things that I love about people who know when to say, I don't know this answer, right? So saying I
strength.
don't know, that's powerful, yeah.
Right. When it comes to founders, as you transition from being a successful founder into an investor role,
I'm not transitioning to this. I'm still a founder. I'm one of the co-founders at Seedblink. I'm still founding companies. So I'm never going to be out of the founding thing. It's part
Right.
of my life.
it's part of you, but you still need, it's a different mindset. Investing in a startup rather than controlling a startup from day one,
Yeah.
right? How do you reconcile this? Because this isn't simply, growing a company and letting go of some of your responsibility, passing them on to the people to the people in your team. This is more as in you're ceding control completely from the very beginning. Control isn't yours, right? And you can only contribute to the to the
absolutely.
development of a company.
Look, the most important thing from me is whose dream is that? Is it my dream? I'm the founder, it's my dream, and I'm the one accountable for that dream, right?
Right.
When I'm founding a company, when I'm putting money, when I'm investing in a company, it's your dream, right? It's your dream, you're accountable for that. I'm helping you. And it's fair. If you want another metaphor, it's like driving. You're the driver or the co-driver, right? The
Right.
co-pilot.
Yeah.
And if you're the driver, I mean, you are so focused on, driving, and you need help of co-pilots and everything. And I'm very cool, and I'm lucky. My brain can get organized this way. So I'm either the driver or the co-pilot,
Right.
or I'm either it's my dream, and then I'm focusing and I'm taking the shots of, okay, so this is the vision, that's where we are going. I mean, please help. Or if I'm the help, then it's your dream, that's where we are going, and I can either agree or disagree. I can help you with money, with knowledge, with networking, with whatever I can help, or not. But I'm not going to tell you where to go because it's your dream.
You cannot touch the steering wheel at that point. But I love this dream idea because, to be honest, I never heard it phrased exactly like this. So if it's my dream, I'm going to be the one funding it, so I'm going to be the one behind the wheel.
Absolutely.
Right? If it's your dream and I sort of believe in your dream, I'm happy to contribute, but I'm not going to have any inclination into, grabbing the steering wheel.
No, because it's your dream. You know about it. I mean, it's your dream. I can buy in or not.
Yeah.
Right? But if I buy in your dream, it's your dream. I'm buying into you.
So Radu, what are you dreaming of these days?
Professionally.
Professionally.
I'm dreaming on Seedlink. So Seedlink is actually that kind of a dream, changing the world. And I'll get back into my experience into changing the world. That Seedlink is actually changing the European world, the European way of investing in tech companies. It's basically creating the infrastructure for investing in tech companies in Europe, from startups to stock exchange, like to listing.
Right.
It's a huge endeavor. It's a huge endeavor both geographically, to expand it, to consolidate it on an European level. It's never been done as yet. And it's super exciting, and also on the levels, because it has to create the opportunity to invest in companies and to fund companies from startups all the way to maturity, right? Growing through growth and all the stages. It's so exciting, and there are so many extremely smart and experienced people around in the company. It's absolutely. So I don't think I've worked that much for quite a while now. It's empowering, and the dream is like absolutely keeping us all working like dogs, just because it's so exciting.
So this is such an interesting ambition that you guys have, and here's what I mean. Romania isn't the most investment-prone country, historically speaking.
Yep.
So about 10 years ago, the number of startups was quite limited. Being a founder in Romania meant opening a candy shop or a pastry shop or something like that, or even buying a house somewhere up in the mountains and starting a B&B, right? For the last few years, we've seen some significant changes. We've seen an ecosystem brewing, even if it's sort of just being born now. It's still somewhat embryonic, right? We have a really good number of startups. SaaS companies are starting to take great leaps here. A number of VC funds being locally formed, right? But having the ambition to change the investment ecosystem at a European level, and starting that within Romania, making your first cases here, and then branching out, scaling up quite fast, because you've opened a number of offices in a very short amount of time, as an investment vehicle and strategy as a whole. So it's look, really ambitious.
Personally, I love being in the change the world type of a game, and I've been quite a few times. So if you look historically, I started together with Costin Raiu, RAV Antivirus, when there were like 4 antiviruses in the world globally.
Right.
And antivirus and security conferences were like 20 people in a room, right? So that's really exciting. And here's where security is these days, right? So building an industry, creating an industry is something that gives me goosebumps. And that's really exciting. Started a payment in Romania that became PayU. These days it was the first, and for a number of years the only type of online payment, when nobody was like paying online. What the hell is that? Very exciting. Avangate being doing online payments for software was not necessarily the first, but among the first suppliers of this kind of services globally. So mindset of changing things, like shooting to the moon, Elon Musk type of things, Steve Jobs type of thing. Okay, does Europe, is there a need? Does Europe need this thing?
Absolutely.
It absolutely does. Consolidation and all this stuff. Yes, absolutely. Then do we know how to do it? Yes. Then what the hell? I mean, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's change the freaking world. right?
Only this. But you do require a level of craziness, more or less. And if we are to take, for example, Elon Musk's, shooting for the moon, even if you mean you're still among the stars, that's one thing. But in Europe, investments follow a bit more of a traditional path, right? So we don't have pension funds allocating bunch of capital
In
to,
Europe, we do.
No, we don't have pension funds allocating significant amounts of capital to venture capital.
In Europe,
In
we
Europe.
do.
What do you
Yeah,
mean?
we do. Yes, we do. European pension funds, like German, Netherlands,
Right.
and so on, they can allocate.
Oh, yes, they can, but they and it happens. But if you are to compare the rates, for example, with what goes on in U.S. or Canada, it's a significant disparity.
It's a no.
No.
No. So the thing is that U.S. and Canada started before Europe,
Right.
and they're ahead because they're ahead of the curve, right?
Right.
Europe started a little bit later, but things happened in a great way. So, speaking about Romania, because you said about Romania, there is nothing. Like there's Ceausescu's time. You're too young to remember, but Ceausescu's time there is nothing. Even the cobbler was state-owned, right?
Right.
So nobody knew about marketing, investment, whatever, blah blah. Right?
Right.
But then things started to happen, and Rav was people like, okay, you can sell a company to Microsoft and get money. Wow, let's do this. And then Bitdefender happened, and a lot of even more. Then UiPath happened, and then that's
Right.
one more scale, right? In the meantime, all the I don't even remember the names. I mean, there are so many companies that grew and got sold, Interact to Adobe,
Right.
and so on. And it created the environment. In the meanwhile, European Investment Fund, EIF, and the government and whoever just threw in money in startup funds. I mean, in small scale funds. And now they're getting to a second generation, and they're kind of bigger funds. And so it's a process, and that's Romania. Same in Berlin, same in Paris. I mean, same in UK, but UK is not there anymore.
It's a different animal.
But right. So it's just happening, and it's happening fast. We need to show success
Right.
on an European level, so the pension funds would choose to invest in Europe rather than in the US.
Right.
They need to see success, and that's where we are. That's where Seedblink is. Seedblink comes and say, together with others, so we're
Right.
not the only ones, right? I mean, it's a huge environment. We're coming and say, look, this is a success. This is a success. So this is what can be done. This is what we are doing. So get money rather than getting them on NASDAQ, getting on European NASDAQ,
Right.
or whatever it is, right? So it's a process. Somebody needs to do it. We know how to do it. Let's do it.
So here's what I have to say about this. Obviously, there is some value in being slower to start. So it's not always about being first. Even if it's maybe easier to be first. But let's take, for example...
No, it's harder to be first. It's easier to be second. Look, Google was not the first search engine.
Oh, for sure.
Facebook was not the first social media.
Yeah.
Microsoft was not the first operating system.
This is sort of cyclical, right? So we see this on the way I'm looking at it, sort of a 10-year cycle.
Yeah.
When it comes to social media, when it comes to even if Google is obviously hard to challenge, we see once every 10 years we see a new type of search engine coming up, and they're really making waves.
Yep.
So there is a lot of value there in challenging, the status quo. Mm-hmm. The example I had in my head was, for example, with the creation of the internet, right? So even if it started back in the 70s and 80s in the US, Romania in 89 or 90 only had like one internet connection line at Politehnica, and my generation, we started building neighborhood networks, right? And we scaled them up significantly. I was one of those guys who sold the network at 14. Yeah. So there's a lot of value in not being first or even second, and seeing how things are, how they can actually evolve, and then iterating that on a local, smaller scale, right? We have a number of exits in Romania with ideas that started overseas or even in Europe.
Yeah, the rocket internet type of
exactly. The copy-paste model.
Yeah.
By the time the Americans crossed over, you already have a whole bunch of companies.
And I give credit to this type of of
It's
business.
working, yeah.
It's not my personal choice. My choice is let's figure out the way to change the world.
You prefer innovating rather than copying.
I think that's what suits me. I think that for me that's more exciting.
Right.
And I'm getting, up the bed this in the morning, like for this type of thing, and love it, and
Keeps you young.
keeps me young, and it just, I mean, there is a little bit of success now and then, and that's
Right.
what I'm living for.
I see that you're a person who's sort of in love with the process of discovering itself, right? Because when you copy somebody,
that's a
you
good
just
one,
have to execute properly. When you're figuring stuff out for the first time, it's a lot of discovery involved,
I agree.
right? But on the investment side, if we are to look at, a bird's eye view of everything, the place where the US, for example, is right now when it comes to venture capital, we see that because they started very early. Let's take Tim Draper's example. So that's the first investment family, the first venture capital family that opened San Francisco before San Francisco was anything but a port, right? They didn't have the industry or anything like that. We see generational.
I'd say Sequoia and others. So not necessarily the first, but yeah, one of the first. Yeah.
They sort of position themselves as being the first venture capital in San Francisco, but it's debatable.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, so from Tim Draper's grandfather or father, I'm not sure which one was the first move to San Francisco, then to Tim Draper. Now his kids, his son, his daughter. We're seeing a transition from right. So this is risk capital, right? We're going to invest in a bunch of companies. Tim Draper was the one who focused on tech, and he loved the scalability. And now his kids are investing in what they like to call sci-fi projects or moonshot projects. They invest in rockets. They were the first investors in SpaceX. They were among the first in Tesla at angel level, the friends and family round. And it's really interesting to see how the appetite for risk increases over time, generationally speaking, especially with somebody who has VC in their DNA. I'm wondering, how you see things moving in Romania. Is Seedling sort of a moonshot, or do you think that there's a level beyond it? What type of a venture we can build here and invest in here, like CRISPR, DNA splicing, for example, deep math, AI, ML.
Look, Seedling is helping tech companies,
Right.
Grow, raise money, and grow on multiple levels, right? And it helps the investors through Seedling choose and build their own portfolios
Right.
based on their own investment thesis. Now that's the exceptional part of Seedling, that it goes to a few thousands of people in Romania and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands on European level. People like you and me, right? So no Ion Țiriac or whoever else, right? I mean, not people with a lot of money, but people with, decent amounts of money, that people that can invest and would like to invest, thousands of euro, right? Not millions. And train them that an investment is not a roulette kind of a bet. It's a process that the VCs know how to do, and that's why the VCs are winning. And we're trying to get all the VC experience and move it to you personally, and say, look, man, A, you don't invest in one company, you invest in a portfolio of companies, right? B, you don't invest based on emotions or whatever. You create a thesis. So you start, and your thesis can be emotional or whatever, but it has to be coherent.
Right.
So your thesis is, I invest in female-led companies, or I invest in teams that are having this quality, or I invest in B2B software in Italy, or whatever that thesis is, and you need to understand why you create that thesis. And then, like in Spotify, you choose what type of music you like. You come into Seedling and say, okay, I want to invest in this and this and this and this and this. And then you see the opportunities that match your thesis. Then you create a portfolio, right, that 10 companies, 15 companies, 20 companies, whatever. And that's a portfolio that's in continuous kind of movement, and you can get in and out and so on. And that portfolio is actually what defines you. And we're making sure that we're giving you all the professional VC grade tools for you to invest as a VC.
Honestly,
right?
the level of due diligence Seedblink operates on the startups it chooses to list, that is a thing of beauty.
Yeah,
honest to God.
absolutely. And it's super, super cool. Actually, these days we're bringing external third-party analysts to write about the companies that we're bringing on, right? So I don't know when it's going to start, and I don't even know if I'm speaking before my my kind of thing. That we're getting external advisors analysis to show what third parties are actually saying about this company, like on the stock exchange, right? This advisor is saying this advisor is saying this advisor. So it's not Seedblink's perception, is this a good company or a bad company? It's also third parties' perceptions. And we're seeing advisors saying that, look, we believe this company is risky, and others. So two advisors about the same company, one is saying it's very risky, the other one is saying not necessarily, right? So different nuances of gray, they're not black and white, right? But different nuances of grays, and you as an investor can read and then read the company documentation, Seedblink's appraisal, and you try to understand and invest.
Look, one opportunity I'm seeing when it comes to Seedblink, which is rather huge, it might be early, but I'm still keeping an eye out for that, is the creation of so-called quant funds. So having the ability of operating a quantitative analysis level of not just due diligence, but ongoing due diligence as to how a company operates, what happens there, and using that in order to deploy your capital on Seedblink is something that's interesting, because we have it on the London Stock Exchange. Every private equity firm uses quants. Every US firm absolutely uses quants. They've been the oldest at it, right? So nobody's using quants today on Seedblink on early stage startups, and I think that's a huge missed opportunity.
Because it's too expensive and it needs critical mass. So we're getting there. It's a bit too early. Now the beauty of creating new things is to keep the balance between the shoot to the moon, shoot to the Mars, vision, and what can actually be done and what makes sense at this stage.
What's feasible today.
What's feasible today. And it's a very fine balance. and a lot of companies are dying because they're either saying, okay, we're shooting to the Mars, so I don't care what's today. I mean, and can it be done? Yeah, probably. Is it slam dunk? I don't know. Other companies are very slowly doing what can be done, and self-sustaining and bootstrapping and so on. I think there's a balance,
a fine balance,
and we're trying to keep that. And we're adding features every day, and we're adding consolidations every day, and offices every day, and we're trying to make some numbers as well on the revenue side. Revenue is not necessarily our most important part, but revenues are.
When do you think we're going to see the first consolidations happening within Seedblink? So this means M&As happening at Seedblink's level, one listed company merging with another listed company.
I don't think that's that's not an objective in itself. I think
it's a consequence.
It's a consequence. I think I refuse to measure this. I don't think that is an objective that it's important to be measured in any way. I think that each company has its own road, and I think that Seedblink investments, the portfolio, are so broadly dispersed that, and each of them has its own direction.
Obviously.
That we don't necessarily look for corporate development, corp dev, M&A in between. We're trying to put them together for biz dev and companies in our portfolio, in Seedblink portfolio, are working together on the business side, not on the corporate side. And that's happening. I mean, that is happening. I mean, a lot of companies have actually created business opportunities together in the Seedblink portfolio. I don't think I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
I'm pretty sure it will happen. I was just wondering when as to what the timeline is.
I have no clue, and I'm honestly not interested in it.
Okay, fair enough. I'm curious about. Moving back to what you said. Companies within the Seedblink portfolio that have been listed working together. This is really interesting to explore because Seedblink does not operate as a VC, and yet it has a lot of the VC. Plus.
It does operate as a VC. Funny enough, it does operate as a VC. With thousands of LPs.
Yeah, on one side mixed together with the the way of workings of the S&P 500 or the stock exchange in some regards. So there are similarities there.
It's right? A funny combination.
Yeah, it is, and I really think it's an interesting point. But let's look at capital allocation for a second. In my opinion, the most interesting case study we've had in the past 20 years is Startup Nation in Israel, right? Mm-hmm. And what went on there. The state investing massive amounts of capital at very early stage. And we're not talking about, the small tickets of 25,000, 50,000.
But that was state-backed.
It was step back, but it's curious to see what went on today. So leaving aside the huge success they've had because they've birthed a ton of unicorns, right? Yep. In the past 10 years alone, it's been crazy. But at the same time, they've also changed a couple of generations of young professionals. Yeah, in the sense that it's harder than ever for Israeli companies to recruit. At home, they're forced to branch out from day one when it comes to building a team. At the same time, valuations have skyrocketed, and oftentimes they're not really backed by anything except for I'm an Israeli company starting out.
Sure.
Right?
Couple of comments here. One is that being state-backed, that project, means that the efficiency of the money was very low, right? So you are saying it did this and so many unicorns and blah, 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 blah. All in all, the efficiency was very low. Seedblink is managing people's money. We cannot afford to suggest things and encourage people to be non-efficient, right? Government has not only financial objectives, strategic and everything, right? You as an investor on Seedblink, you have pure financial objectives, and we kind of need to show you that. You are not going to invest as an investor through Seedblink in companies that are important to Romanian army as
obviously
right. And I don't care if it's going to make profits or good exit or not, right? So that's the first thing. Second, the fact that you cannot employ anymore and everybody is doing that. Yeah, absolutely, but that's great. I mean, that's the objective. Let people be around and create great business. And it's a supply and demand thing. More and more people are going to get out of the schools into this. More and more people are going to get into the schools for technology and so on. So yeah, I mean, that's how Israel got where it got. That's how Europe is going to go where it goes.
Do you believe that's a path here for Europe?
Oh yeah.
Large capital deployment almost at every single state. I mean, we are seeing the first steps of that with the EIF and what it has been doing with VC funds. But the VC funds, they were all still operating as VCs, so that it had this flavor to it that made the money more efficient.
You've got to search for reports. I mean, the curve of European investments is like this, right? So the US is like this. So it's like, 5 or 10 years, 10 or 15 years behind US, but it's growing like hell. Now, US VCs are coming to Europe.
We're seeing that. We spoke to a couple.
We're seeing this, and new models like Seedblink are rising, and big corporate VCs are starting to happen. Europe is becoming more and more acquisitive. Corporate Europe, like the big firms, European firms are becoming acquisitive, which is a very good catalyst to get companies created. sooner or later, an European Nasdaq is going to emerge. We believe Seedblink is going to be the one. So things are going to happen. Things are happening already.
Right.
And Europe 10 years ago had 0 unicorns. 10 years ago,
What was the first one? I think it was Hype, right? Or among the first ones.
at that point there were 3, referring to that, there were 3 basically unicorns. One was SAP,
Right.
which was probably the first.
Yeah.
Then it was SUSE, Linux.
Oh, right. Yeah,
SUSE Linux, and Skype. So there was a moment in time where there are only these 3 tech companies in Europe. I mean, for God's
Right.
sake, right? But look how it grew.
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean,
No, look,
yeah.
it's amazing. I start feeling like an old guy saying this, but I remember the days when it required in Romania to have 10 or 20 people to cover a 50,000 euro ticket. So I remember those days, and the 50,000 would usually by majority that would become an investor's vehicle more or less. So I remember those days, and it wasn't that long ago. And now we're talking about really, really big valuations. So let's take Floex's example, second largest seed round in Europe. That's so impressive to know that. Guys, 7 years ago we had no funds, we had 3 TS, but nobody at seed, right?
Yeah.
And just angels, and the angels weren't organized. And now look at where we are. We have Seedlink who's branching out like crazy. We have 3 or 4
Proper VCs, yeah.
proper VCs. We have Bogdan who just announced, his tiny fund, but that's still a VC, and it's
No,
fully backed.
it's a VC. It's not still a VC. It's a proper.
It's a proper
it's a
VC,
proper VC,
right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's fully backed by successful individuals out of Romania. So fully private, no public cash, no EIF, none of that.
Yeah,
it's so incredible to look at the transition we've been through in just the last few years,
Yeah.
right? So let's talk about this, the actual transition, how things moved so fast for us, because I wouldn't have expected it. When I came back in the country, and we were just starting to work with EIF, Gapminder wasn't here yet, Early Game wasn't here yet. I know you were trying to piece together the fund, and I remember that was hard, it was difficult, it was a rough journey, right? What was it like from your perspective, seeing this transition?
It is a transition, and as any transition from nothing to everything, it does have a lot of ups and downs. I mean, it is not a smooth ride. It's kind of a lot of bumps on the road, a lot of mistakes being done by all sides, a lot of great things being done. If you want me to point on the most important thing that empowered this environment, was the listing of UiPath. That created a huge amount of people with knowledge and money and willingness to invest,
Right.
and that know each other and trust and understand, and they're respected. So that created an absolute amazing catalyst for the environment growth. But not only this. I mean, a lot of other things happening, small things around this, and one of them being experience, just sheer experience.
Right.
People starting to understand what's happening. More and more entrepreneurs have been to Techstars, to Y Combinator.
Right.
Some of them successful, some of them not successful. Coming back, even the non-successful. Even the
The
non-successful.
know-how in ways of working is extremely valuable.
Absolutely. The successful one maybe stayed in the States and they're
Right.
there and helping a little, but the non-successful ones came back with a lot of knowledge.
Especially network.
Yeah.
Right, the people they've met there. It's like the whole benefits of running an MBA program, like the best MBA program,
absolutely.
and bringing that to Romania. That's incredible.
Yep.
I'll tell you my favorite moment, and it's a recent one. It's Flip. Flip founders, they used to be my students, and I've met them since they were kids.
they're
They
kids.
still
I know,
are
I
kids for
remember.
all intents and purposes, and seeing them become this huge, not huge, but this sort of behemoth in the making. Fastest growing company in Romania is run by 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Absolutely.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I live for moments such as this. What's your favorite moment out of the Romanian ecosystem, leaving aside UiPath, because that's
That's a big one.
And look, here's a question. I'm not sure if you've met with DNS and UiPath before they got the money from Dalu.
No, not really.
But do you think you would have invested in them back then?
I have no clue.
For me, look,
I have no
I knew
clue.
about them. It was my job to know about them, and I was like, that's just a Windows macro. Nobody, I don't see it. Honestly, I didn't have the ability to see it back then, and now it's this.
I think Dan Lupu deserves all the credit
He
for
sure
this. I mean,
We've had him on board as well. With
yeah. So he was with that thing absolutely amazing in recognizing Daniel's abilities, because at the end of the day you don't invest in a product, you invest in a team's dream, right? So he did recognize Daniel's dream and ability to execute at certain levels, and Dan Lupu deserves actually huge credit for developing, the Romanian ecosystem around UiPath.
Right.
So much more credit that he actually that I'm seeing in the market
It wasn't
for
about
him.
making a smart bet, because it was an interesting bet at that time, but it was what he did afterwards, and the what I call destination marketing.
Yep.
That happened, and this is
But that's Daniel's thing.
Yeah.
That's all Daniel's thing. Yeah.
Obviously,
No, but
yeah.
Daniel was a very senior person, so that everybody knew at that time. I mean, he came back after so many years of working with Microsoft and all this thing in
Right.
senior positions in Redmond. So I think, but anyway, that's yeah.
It's just really interesting
Yeah.
to look at. I wanted to talk to you about the nature of, not the nature, but how mentality changes over time. Because as a founder, you have one set of things that you're looking at. As an investor, you have another set of things that you're looking at, and that consistently shifts and changes over time. For me, life is a sum of transformative experiences.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, is there something that you don't, not afraid of becoming, but you don't want to become? For me, I'll give you an example so you know how I'm phrasing this. For me, I'm afraid of becoming cynical. As you're looking at the world of investment, it's easy to become cynical and somewhat cold to problem solution pairs. And
No, what I really want not to become, and hopefully I got it. I don't want to become the know-it-all kind of a person, right? So the more you get old, the more you get experienced.
Right.
Everything coming to you, you've seen it failed once, right? So it's like, oh, I know this. I know how this is going to evolve. I know how this is going to evolve. I know how this is going to evolve in the good or bad things. And do this because, this is how it works. Do this because I've
But
read
how
this.
do you fight that? Because I find myself often in these positions, and I'm trying to
No.
fight it, and it's hard.
It just don't. I mean, just trusting people, trusting the smart people. I think that the most important thing for me is, and kind of closing the circle, is that sitting next to smart people, right, and trusting their judgment, and questioning their judgment, and encouraging them to challenge your judgment.
Right.
So the very moment when somebody is telling me, "Oh, you're right,"
Yeah.
and you can feel that people are saying you're right just because they just want to.
Because you're the OG, you've done it all, and it's hard to challenge
exactly,
it.
right? So really encourage people and I'm trying to get myself around people that are questioning my decisions and that are slapping me, on the head and say, "Hey, man, are you crazy? I mean, that's wrong. Don't boss around. Don't be smart ass, right? Don't be right."
Look,
and that, I mean, having good friends and having good friends that are telling you are wrong, having people around in the room that are telling you are wrong, trying to fight. So one of the things that I love is trying to fight for my beliefs. So getting into a boardroom
and being challenged.
where I do not have to fight for my beliefs, I'm getting out. I'm not staying there, right?
Right.
Whenever, if I'm getting into a board and my, whatever I'm saying is being implementing, I'm like, okay, no value added here for me. I'm not adding value, right? So I need to be able to be part of a statistics, right? My beliefs are equal to your beliefs and to his and to hers, and we're fighting and getting the best decision. And I'm a powerful fighter, and I'm going to fight for my beliefs. I'm not going to let them go, but I need to fight, and I'm really, 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 honestly, deeply trying to understand what your beliefs are. And at the end of the day, if we're four and the three of you are saying left and I'm saying right, we're going to go left.
Right.
I may jump off the train and say, okay, I don't believe, and I go, but
Let's talk about gut feeling decisions, because I know you have a strong stomach. It's a strange stomach. I'm not sure if you've read Blink from Malcolm Gladwell. It's a really good book. I recommend it.
Okay.
So it's basically about gut feeling decisions. You have like an art connoisseur checking out a work, like an ancient piece of work, and saying, this isn't right. This is a fake, and having no data, just gut feelings, right? Or decisions done by army generals, captains, in theaters of war. How do you balance out what your stomach is telling you and what you're seeing with your own eyes and the rational brain, because it is a fight and it should be a fight?
It is that's an internal fight, and it's augmented by the external people around in the room.
Yeah.
But it is a fight, and sometimes the gut wins, sometimes the logic wins, and sometimes the winning is right, and sometimes is wrong.
What do you mean the winning is wrong?
I mean, the gut wins and it's proven wrong,
right?
Or the logic wins and it's proven wrong. It doesn't have to be right all the time.
For sure. For me, here's my experience with gut feeling. So every single time my stomach told me something and I listened to it, even if I lost, I didn't lose big. So it wasn't a painful loss. Every single time I went against the gut feeling and lost, I lost big. I'm not sure if
I see what you're saying. I'm trying to see.
So sure, there are losses. The stomach isn't always wrong, but when you listen to it, at least for me, when I listen to my gut feelings, even if I was wrong, I didn't really lose that much. It wasn't a painful loss.
Right. I think my stomach is an advisor for me, and the decision maker is the data.
Right.
But it's a good advisor. I mean, it's an advisor I'm actually looking at and take into consideration. But the final decision maker is not the gut. The final decision maker is actually there is one more because you said gut and data, but there is people around, right? So in my thing, I think that the decision maker is people around based on data. And the gut feeling is the advisor kind of trying to filter things around.
Let's explore this a bit, because something that's really visible, anybody who would look you up would see this, that you started out with a rather small army, but you've managed to grow a lot of people, and you've managed to work with them and keep them close for a long period of time, even if they went on to do other things, right? So I know what happened with Avangate, and the fact that you took your product manager from Avangate and you brought them over to see that was a brilliant move, because we see where it led us today, right? And it's really hard to bring product people are incredibly hard to find, and not just in Romania but everywhere.
Yeah. Product management is I mean that's one of the most underrated jobs in the world, and it's the most important job. And everybody else forgive me about this. It's not undermining your jobs, but the product manager is like a janitor, and there are some books. It's that, in the good way, janitor, right? It's cleaning up all the mess in the company and pushing the company forward and knowing everything in the company. It's the glue that makes everybody run.
Look,
so
for me,
it's such a hard job to do, and I love these guys.
Me too, man. And in Europe, especially in US, not so much, not anymore, although it used to be the same, but in Europe we seem to have this lack of understanding of what a product, I don't even call it product manager or product owner, like I'm not referring to the role, I'm talking to the person, right? And the traits the person who runs the show should have. But product people, they should manage 4 areas. You cannot be a successful product person if you can't do tech, if you can't do business strategy, if you can't do go-to-market, and if you're not a people person. No way you can handle all of this. You need all 4 traits. in order to build successful
And when you
products.
say people person includes the good sense of manipulation and trying to convince people
I
and
mean all of
everything.
it. I mean all of it. You have to be the carrot and the stick at the same time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really hard to come by. How do you find your product people? Because you found a few, and obviously you found the right people.
To start with, it's not necessarily me finding. I've never been the CEO of any company.
Right?
So my most important job is to find the CEO, and then it's the CEO's job to find the rest of the
Right.
team, and to find the CTO, who's again very, very important, and all the things. So he's not only the product guy
Obviously.
in the company, right? CFO, the whatever, head of sales and
Yeah.
head of revenue and so on. So my most important problem is finding the CEO, as I'm probably the worst CEO ever. So I'm not. I know my weaknesses. I'm not a good CEO. I need to find the right CEO and then find the rest of the people. But yeah.
You often said that you're the worst executor ever. So you're
Yeah.
not great at execution, and yet you've managed to bring in the right people. So you knew your shortcomings. You knew the areas that you didn't really want to develop at the end of the day, because it's a choice. You can learn how to execute well. You can do it against your nature, but you chose not to change your nature, or
There are two ways. I mean, you know what your goods are and what your bads are. You can either try to make your bads being
Right.
slightly better, or or double down on your good things and be there and help filling in the gaps with something else. And I'm a very self-aware person. I know what my gaps are, what my shortcomings are, and I just chose deliberately to not fight. It would have been very painful for me. I really don't believe anybody in the world should do something that they don't like,
Yeah.
because it's going to be bad. I mean, okay, I'm a clever guy. I could probably do something decent. I'm not shooting for decent, right?
right.
So let's get the best CEO, and then this is suddenly best level that I couldn't get to. I would have
Right.
been decent, and let me increase from great to even better if I can put the same effort, right? So yeah, no, I'm plus that I'm happy. I'm not coming here to do something that I don't know how to do and I'm doing just a decent job. I'm just
Right.
coming here do the great thing that I love doing, and have next to me somebody that is doing great things that he or she loves doing it.
Right. Here's a question: do you think?
And look, just to give you an example, I'm Carmen Sebek, who's the CEO of Sibling, right? We're working together for the last 25 years, right? And she's CEO type of a person, and I'm chairman of the board, strategy, vision, or whatever, founder type of a person. And it works great. I mean, she does what she loves to. She doesn't want to be public. She doesn't want to go speak. She doesn't want to. And I'm there to do better than her this. And then I don't like to, and I don't know how to be the CEO, how to handle people, how to find the good people. The pro. You're saying getting back, to the team, people from Avangate, like Adriana, like Laurentiu, so on, Dorina, Georgia, right? It wasn't me getting them back. It was
This is
actually
a surprise for me.
Carmen.
I really thought you were the one who
No.
put it together.
No, no.
This is a
and it's
surprise
funny,
for me.
and that's a
Carmen should step out in the light more. Honestly, she should be slightly more visible, because she's doing all of these amazing things.
She absolutely should. She absolutely should. She just doesn't. It's a choice not to.
Right. It's against her nature, maybe. All right.
That's why I'm here to give her the credit. And sorry, just to make it justice. I mean, one of the siblings' greatest assets is the founding team, which is it's the team, right? In general, and that gets into the founding and the advisors and the executive team. So the founders, I mean, it's four of us, right? It's Carmen, myself, and then it's Andrei and Ionuț. I mean, it's the most powerful funding team that I've seen in Romania by now. That's not a recipe for success necessarily. It's not a guarantee for success, but it's something. So, so there are four people in our 50s, early 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, very senior. Two of them ex, bank CEOs, secretaries and drivers and so on.
There is no reason why Sibling should have worked with that founding team. And I was talking to Andre about this because he's ex-bank, so he's a really, really clean cut. You were the entrepreneur. Carmen was the person behind, in the dark, but making sure that everything's at the right place at the right time. So in your 50s again, so there's no reason why Sibling should have worked with that founding team, and yet it has. It's
absolutely amazing, and that's one. And then there's the board of advisors, and normally, I mean, companies are coming with some pictures there on a slide, and this,
some distant LinkedIn contacts. Yeah, she's an advisor.
Yeah, exactly. You call them, they don't even know the name of the company, right? So we have a board of advisors that it's so connected to us and actually working with us on what they're advising for.
Right.
Perfectly chosen, so they cover, our most important tracks,
right,
for the business. So that's again very, very important. Then the executive team that comes, from Avangate historically, and new people that come and built in. People developed from internally, from Sibling and gathered. It is absolutely amazing. So you get to a team here, and we're like 45, 50 people, something
already
right now. Yeah. I mean, I was telling you how many offices we have. I mean, there are people around.
Right.
There are people around. I mean, look, we have investment managers that are looking at companies. We're listing 5, 6, 7 companies a month. I mean,
yeah,
we're doing stuff.
You're moving.
Right? It's something where each and every person, A, is smart, B, knows their job, C, wants to be here, and we encourage people to be entrepreneurial in the company. Like, the way they're saying that it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission, right? And, please, man, do things.
Go out, try to take the risk,
go
whatever happens.
Yeah. And, if this entrepreneurial thing into the company in Sibling gets you think entrepreneurial and gets you to come one day and say, Radu, Carmen, I think I want to create my own company, the answer is by all means, yeah, absolutely. I love you. I want you to stay in Sibling. But if your dream is to create a company,
go for it.
Go for it, man.
Right.
Go for it. How can I help you do this? And I feel it as a huge personal success when somebody is leaving a company and it gives a big scar to the company.
Right.
To go create his or her own.
That's a blip
thing.
right there, and I think that I'm not sure if you do it, but you should definitely promote that, because for the newer generation, feeling empowered and working in an environment such as
Absolutely.
this is tops everything else.
Absolutely.
But it also exposes you guys to some risks. Can you talk about the most expensive mistake or the most expensive lesson you've learned in Sibling? And I mean expensive, if there are any.
I don't really know how to.
There has to be something at the top of your head.
There has to be, but it's not really. I mean, I think I would need a bit more time to get it. Look, Sibling is a very young company. I mean, it's a 2-year-old company, right? I think that the real expensive mistakes are kind of too recent to be able to say them publicly.
Okay.
Did we do mistakes? Oh yeah, I mean, obviously. But I don't think that I can get the top of my head right now. And B, even if I got them, I don't know if I would make them public right now.
All right. There is something interesting here, because you are expanding valiantly fast, right? How do you balance out the need to expand with covering your tracks? So making sure you don't want to do Alexander the Great's mistake or Caesar's. You go way too thin, but you can't cover your
Yeah.
You're mid.
Yeah.
So how do you balance this out? What does this balancing act look like in Seedlink?
Yeah, so there are different people and different teams. I mean, there's teams going to consolidate through acquisitions,
Right.
and there's team going and open new offices, and there's team coming and building up, the solid foundation, and having so many senior people that
Right.
are each of them sustaining. I mean, they're just don't
Right.
need to hold their hands. I mean, it just works.
I'm wondering if you have something that you're.
But look, if things, we're all loving, the stories of Facebook and the Starbucks and Amazon and Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and so on. But they took risks and they grew faster than your normal next door company. You can grow bootstrap and not take risk and growing 10% a year and so on. But if you want to make a dent in the universe, you need to jump high
Right.
and need to run fast and take shortcuts. And I'm not talking about illegal shortcuts. I mean
Right,
just
right.
business
Obviously.
shortcuts, right? And do things and improvise and so on. So we're really fighting to grow and to run as quick as possible. It's a land grabbing mode. It's a new
Obviously.
business type. I'm acutely aware that even though it appears that we are the only ones doing this, I'm sure that in some corner of Paris, 3 or 4 more senior guys than us are trying to do the same, or in some corner of Berlin or wherever else, right, or in the US, even if they're not yet public or so on. So it's land grabbing mode. We need to land grab, right?
Right.
Now, are we going to fail and hire the wrong person in a new country, or do some expensive mistakes on strategy of creating the wrong model or implementing the old pricing model or something like this? Yeah, you do the mistake, you roll back and you start all over
My
again. You
thinking was
just
more-
listen.
Yeah, the reason I asked you about the most expensive mistake and then followed up with this is because every single empire has a invade Russia in the winter moment, right? So this isn't about moving way too fast and you're able to do foundationally, but this is more of, man, it's a jewel. It's right there. It's in your face. It's Russia. It's Moscow. Right? Let's go for it. And everybody goes for it. And you take it, but you can't hold it. Not for long because winter comes.
Yeah.
Right. So I was wondering if you have this jewel somewhere. Whether it could be a territory or it could be a segment
look,
or
if,
something.
if I were to know what's going to happen in the future, hopefully I wouldn't do the
No,
mistake.
not saying
but
that you're gonna fail, but
Yeah.
is there something that it's obvious that you should go for?
I don't know. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
All right.
I'll meet
Oh.
you next year at the same time for on this,
Love it.
and see what's happening.
Okay, I think this is pretty much it for us. Is there something that you would like to plug next, or give us something that's not well known about?
No, so
Seedlink?
what I normally kind of finish with is a little bit of what I would do is if I was young. And what I do and what I'm telling, my kids and everybody is that, man, do stuff. I think that it's such a pity to not do things and not fail. I think it's so exciting to do things. It's so exciting to do and try and fail and figure out who are you, what you are best at, and what you like and what you don't like. Coming from, high school, like, playing an instrument, going hiking, going climbing, go whatever, right?
Right.
Do things, program,
Live
arts,
life.
whatever.
Yeah.
Live life. Try to understand what's happening. I'm so happy trying to do things, figure out who I am and what I'm best of, what I'm worst of, understand who you are and what's good for you. And that's on the personal life, on the business life, as a company, as a founder. Again, do things, shoot for the moon. And I'm not saying be stupid and well, try to understand where the moon is and what type of gun do you need to get to
Right.
the moon. But do things. I think that just sitting is disgusting.
I know what you mean. In my opinion, something that I often told my students, like George from Flip, was there's nothing more expensive than time lost,
Yeah.
than time wasted.
Yeah, absolutely. I
I'd
fully
much
agree.
rather dig my own hole, but I'm the one doing it and I'm actively pursuing that, than sitting on my ass.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Super
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Pleasure. Take care.